Welcome. Welcome into today's edition of Strategies for Living here on 1017 FM and 710 KEEL. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. She is, I don't know, she's spicy tonight. What do you think,
It's not
Ruben?
really so much like a Cheshire cat
No,
tonight. It's
not a Cheshire cat. No.
I'm an angry tomcat.
Yeah. There she is, PLPC, Carla McCormick. How you doing, Carla girl?
I'm working on getting my blood pressure back down over here.
Well, reality is not what you think. I mean, this goes right into what we're going to talk about this evening. I mean, it really does. I mean, you came in pissed off. I mean, let's just say it the way it is. But reality isn't what you think it is.
I know, and I'm a trained professional. I'm supposed to know better.
Actually, cognitive distortions can do harm to us, and we're going to talk about that this evening.
They can make my blood pressure rise.
They can, and we need to introduce our ace of the airways. He keeps us flying high, low, and in between. And I don't think we hardly ever hit any turbulence. So the guy's a great pilot.
I do my very best.
Rapid Ruben Wright, how you doing?
Good evening, everybody. I am doing great. Trying to find some very zen, very calming music.
I hope you've been as entertained in the last 7 or 8 minutes before going on the air as I have.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, it just some days are like that. Folks, thank you for tuning into Strategies for Living. Boy, you better buckle. If you're going to listen tonight, you better buckle your seatbelt. We are brought to you by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families for 60 years now. You don't have to leave home to get treatment. There's a lot of options here. Check out CADA. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. We will be back, I promise. If Carla doesn't swallow Ruben and I up during the break, we're going to do our best, though. We'll be back. More Strategies for Living, and reality, that's not what you think.
I have some cognitive distortions going on. Ow!
just trying to get a peaceful, easy feeling.
You got me.
Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC, Carla McCormick. And we're talking about reality. It isn't always what we think it is. We talk about cognitive distortions and how they can harm us. You know, Carla, all kidding aside, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
Yes, and through our prism of our own belief system.
Yeah, we have this personal lens, and we all have it. And so that lens, you know, over these past months on the air, we've called it our ego. We've called it our operating system. It's the collection of well, first of all, it's just words and gestures. You know, before our brain develops and we have language. I mean, our communication begins with us, I suppose, in the womb, you know?
Right.
And then, of course, when we're born, we may not understand what our parents are saying to us or what our caregivers are saying to us, but we certainly read the energy, you know, and we can pick that up. So we get messages, we get words, and those turn into beliefs. And those beliefs and words and messages, we you know, cobble them all together to make stories, and we keep those stories up in our operating systems, and those are the lens through which everything happens. Of course, our culture, our religion, our various experiences in life, all of those contribute to where our lens is at this point in time.
Well, and they reinforce some of those stories are reinforced time and time again.
Yeah.
Some of them fade off.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and yeah, they are reinforced, but we also see what we want to see. You know,
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
In some ways, I think it can be. I mean, and again, I think even if we're aware that operating system is there. And I don't know how many of us really are aware. You know, I hope more of our listeners than not, because we talk about it a lot. I hope you and I hope a lot of therapists are. But I don't know. I don't know. You know, I don't know the answer to that.
I think to know what your operating system is, you have to do some work. I mean, there are some things that are obvious, and there are other things that are you know, more benign. They're quieter. You know, and for me, those are the little tapes that play in my head, the ones that tell me, you know, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or whatever, you know, whatever that case may be.
Yeah. You see that 1950 movie, Rashomon? You know what the movie I'm talking about?
I do.
It was an example of what we're talking about here. There's three witnesses to a crime. All talk about and they recount different versions of what happened. So they all saw the same crime. They all saw the same thing, and yet there's three different versions. How many times, if couples argue, is the real problem that they can't agree on the facts?
Right.
You know, they can't agree on the facts of what happened. So our mind kind of tricks us, if you will. According to what we think, what we believe, what we feel, that's the lens through which we're going to see reality. So perhaps none of us actually see the world as it is. We don't see reality. We see the world as we are. And so we've got to be aware that there are these things called cognitive distortions. And they can be a part of this operating system, this lens of ours, and it can cause a lot of pain and really unnecessary pain and suffering for us and people around us. Especially if you are a person who has low self-esteem, or you suffer from anxiety, depression, perfectionism, your thinking your thinking can skew your perceptions. It can influence that screen, and cognitive distortions are really about how our thinking can get flawed. Oftentimes, that thinking may stem from insecurity, from low self-esteem, and those become very negative filters that distort our reality.
And so people don't realize that it's a distortion. They think it is reality.
They do, and then on top of that, when we have this distorted reality, because we've got these cognitive distortions going, they also generate. I mean, thoughts and feelings are all part of the same brain, right? Mm-hmm. May come from different sections of the brain, but they're related, and so those cognitive distortions through those filters generate some pretty negative or stressful, hurtful, even feelings and emotions.
That can cause anxiety, depression.
And reinforce what's already, cause or even reinforce what's already there, definitely. So our thoughts stir up our feelings. In turn, they can trigger more negative thoughts. They create a negative feedback loop. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
But it doesn't matter, because feeling thought. I mean, when the brain gets kicked, when the brain kicks in, it's a feeling thought cycle, and we've got feelings, thoughts, and behavior to deal with, and we can intervene at any one of those points. We'll get back to that later. Remind me.
Okay.
But again, that feedback loop happens, and then we act on our distorted perceptions, and that ensures that we're going to have some kind of negative consequences that we don't really want, and certainly we don't need, and that are going to affect, well, everybody else in our life, particularly those of us who happen to be a little bit more codependent than others of us. So
what would be an example of one of those cognitive distortions?
Well, we're going to talk about several of them this evening. We're gonna drill down into several of them. Let's mention some right here at the top of the program, and then we'll begin to drill down. Some of them that I want to talk about this evening, and you may want to talk about some others. Negative filtering is one that I want to talk about. Magnification is certainly one I want to talk about. Labeling, personalization, black and white, or you can also call it all or nothing thinking, is a cognitive distortion. Negative projections and overgeneralizing. Those are some cognitive distortions. Like I said, you may want to add some more to my little list, but those can certainly cause us all kinds of issues, and I think we can see how, right?
Oh, definitely. Negative filtering, that's an easy one.
But
it's so
self-criticism too. I mean, the negative filtering in terms of I'm seeing myself very negatively. I'm criticizing myself.
Well, so let's talk about how this cycle starts. So I'm a little kid, and my teacher says to my parent, and I hear, she's not very good at math. Mm-hmm. And so, she's going to probably always struggle at math.
Oh,
okay.
Wow. Whoa.
So now what happens after that?
Well, that gets installed. That gets put into my little operating system.
I'm not very good at math.
Yeah, and it becomes, if you were a little computer, it would be down in your DOS.
Okay.
Your DOS. We don't ever see DOS, but it runs the whole show, doesn't it?
Right.
In a Windows-based computer or a Microsoft-based computer, MS-DOS runs the thing. You got to know how to get down there and program it, and if you do, you can make that baby whiz, or you can make that pristine, beautiful computer look like it's just a piece of crap, and we've all had those experiences where probably we've been out there surfing the internet and we catch a virus, we catch a and we can't get it off. I mean, we've all had that experience, right? And that same thing happens within our minds.
So we need to defrag our personal
we need
computers.
we need to defrag our personal computers up here, reprogram our DOS, rewrite some of the lines of programming. But first, we got to know that it's running. We got to know that it's there, and then we got to know that we can do that. We've got to know that it's possible to rewrite that programming. Now, it takes effort, just like it would take effort to learn how to go into your computer, find DOS, bring it up, and identify the lines that are problems and rewrite those lines and do it in a way that it's going to run clearly now. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So it's not a matter of this is hopeless. This is a matter of very hopeful. We can reprogram. We can reprogram our DOS, but we gotta know that it's running, and we gotta be willing to do it. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk, starting with the negative filtering, the self-criticism. Can we do that?
Yeah.
All right. Talking about reality may not be what you think it is. How cognitive distortions can hurt us. Here on Strategies. We'll be back.
Hey, 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 mama, look at that zip out in the backyard. Feel like this. Hey, 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 hey.
Oh, yeah. I like it. Welcome back. 1017 FM, 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick. I'm afraid not to give her top billing right now. Marriage and family
It's okay.
therapist.
I'm calm.
I know you are. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Although doesn't take much. We're,
I'm passionate. It's called passion.
You are passionate. Yes, you are. We're talking about reality isn't exactly what we always think it is, and how cognitive distortions can harm us. I don't know if one is more, more dangerous, more deadly than another. Carla, maybe you have an opinion here, but I think if we get into self-criticism, if we get into this negative filtering and self-criticism, that perhaps can be the worst, because nothing can really get better from there until we fix this. It's an aspect of codependency and low self-esteem that big time distorts reality.
It's the one you have to fix first.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
I think
because
so.
you can't do anything else if the tape that plays in your head is I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me.
Then you're not worth fixing.
Yeah,
right.
Then you can't do anything else till you can get past that. And I often have clients keep track of how many times during a day they say something mean or negative to themselves, and it's pretty eye opening when they look at their little tally marks.
Yeah.
How many times during the day they say it's just simple things like you're stupid.
Yeah.
You idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And paying attention to the way we talk about ourselves and to ourselves. I'm not a good athlete. I'm not that smart. I'm not that pretty. Those kinds of things
can lead certainly to feelings of being inadequate, being flawed, can make you feel guilty. All of that negative self-talk robs you. It literally holds you up and robs you of your potential happiness.
Well, what you find is people who have a lot of negative self-talk are always looking at other people and comparing themselves to others.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're judgmental and critical of others too, because how can I be that mean and judgmental and critical to myself and not be judgmental and critical of others?
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense and so I'm comparing myself to them, and if I'm that harsh and critical of myself, of course I'm going to be harsh and critical of others.
Absolutely. And it can make you miserable. It can lead to depression, and it can even lead to you getting physically sick.
Well, or trying to overcompensate in other areas.
Yeah. Certainly leads to a negative filtering, which is itself considered a cognitive distortion. Self-criticism leads to other distortions too, like we'll be talking about magnification and labeling. When you call yourself a failure, a jerk, an idiot, stupid, for example, all of those things, leads to. We talk a lot about shame. That leads to shame, doesn't it? That's different from guilt.
Well, because you're shaming yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, guilt is.
What's the difference between shame and guilt?
Well,
because a lot of people mix those up.
The definition I like, and I'm sure there are a lot of other definitions, but the one I like is guilt is I did something wrong and I'm going to apologize. I'm going to be sorry.
Yep.
Shame is I am wrong. I did something wrong, so that makes me wrong. I am bad.
Yeah.
I'm
just no damn good, and there's no reason. See, and that's why I think both of us are agreeing. You probably have to fix this one first.
I don't know. I don't know any way around it.
Yeah.
I don't know any way around. I mean, if you do believe, like we do, that words have power, then the words that we speak to ourselves have a lot of power.
We are constantly carrying on a conversation in our minds. It's an auditory thing. We may not, may not speak it, but we're hearing it in our minds. It's very powerful.
Well, you talk to yourself more in a day than anyone else is ever going to talk to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing is when you get into shame, you're talking about that is what underlies the destructive, chronic self-criticism, and again causes a lot of the other cognitive distortions that we're going to talk about.
Well, and think about it.
You
know?
ever play that game Jenga?
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
love-
so it's like this is like if you know, the game would end in a minute if, you know, you pull out the, you know, that bottom block on the right or the left. Maybe you can pull out the middle, but if you pull out that bottom right or left block, the tower's coming down, you lose.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So you have to have the foundation of at least, even if if you can't be positive, at least be neutral and not be negative.
Yeah. So what you might find yourself doing is you might find yourself finding fault with your words, your deeds, your thoughts, your appearance, and you perceive yourself, and therefore events. I mean, if you perceive yourself negatively, what else, you know, do you stand a chance? Does anything else stand much of a chance, especially over time?
No.
No. So, you know, until you solve that, I mean, nothing good is going to come from this. So, some beautiful and successful people, you know, it's interesting, see themselves as so unattractive, so mediocre, so full of failures. And, you know, you begin to talk to some of them and you say, wow, I can't convince you otherwise. That's so deeply ingrained in there, and that's shame.
That is shame.
Yeah.
There's inherently something wrong with me. So guilt would be, you know, I drove too fast with the kids in the car and I got a ticket. Shame is, what kind of mother does that? Only a bad mother. I must be a really bad mother to put
horrible.
my kids in jeopardy because, you know, no good mother would ever have done that.
That's different from I made a mistake.
I'm going to pay my
I'm going to pay my fine, and I'm going to remember this, and
And
I'm
not do it again.
not going to do it again.
So we shame ourselves, you know, or we can shame ourselves, you know, all the time, daily, and it's insidious.
Yeah. We probably need to do some more programs on shame and how to free ourselves of shame.
Because what you will find, and what I have found, is people who carry a lot of shame pass that shame on to their kids.
Absolutely.
And so now I'm not just carrying a big load of shame. My kids are carrying a big load of shame.
You know, when you and I were coming up, it was you know, how many times did we hear shame on you?
You're a bad girl.
I you know, I'm sure that still said some, but hopefully less than, you know, than maybe we heard. And I'm not saying our parents were wrong or bad people,
Right.
you know, but they heard it from their parents and
You
their
should be
grandparents.
ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, you should be ashamed of yourself. Yeah. And that's just not healthy.
Well, there's a positive correlation between shame and all of these things: depression, anxiety, eating disorders, alcoholism, drug addiction. And so the people who carry around shame are more likely to have those things.
Hopefully in treatment, if you're going to treatment, you know, certainly I know Kata, I know, you know, your place.
Any good counselor,
Resilient House. Any good counselor will identify shame and begin to work there.
Yeah, well, because there's no way around it.
Yeah.
You cannot heal, you cannot grow unless you find a way to get rid of your shame. And no one can do it for you.
No.
I mean, you know, so
And I blanked on your place a second ago. Active recovery.
that's okay. That's
Thank you.
okay. So,
Hey, Terry.
well, you know, but what the research shows is that, you know, a little bit of guilt is good. Guilt keeps us, you know, guilt keeps us between the lines, so to speak.
It helps me understand, okay, I've done something that I need to go back and get
and change that behavior.
Get this corrected. There is, however, and it's not shame, but there is unhealthy guilt. I mean, there's healthy guilt, and that's when I've actually done something. You know, you gave an example just a second ago. Okay, well, I drove fast, I got stopped, I got a ticket, kids were in the car. Okay, I pay my ticket. I'm, you know,
Right.
That's healthy guilt. Shame would be, I'm just a bad mother, and I stay there. I stay with that. I'm a bad mother. What would be an example of unhealthy guilt?
When I'm guilty of, I feel guilty about things that were out of my control.
Yeah, that I had nothing to do with. Yeah.
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 So, when I feel guilty because you screamed at Ruben and you slapped Ruben,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, Ruben, I'm so sorry, and I go home and I can't let that go because somehow in my mind I should have prevented that.
You somehow in your mind you make yourself responsible.
Exactly. That would be very unhealthy guilt.
Very
Unhealthy.
good example.
I know people who feel guilty when they don't feel guilty. So guilt, guilt's one of those ones.
Another cognitive distortion to be aware of that affects reality is magnification. That's when we exaggerate. We take our weaknesses, and we all have them. Okay, so we are fallible human beings. That's the reality. But when we take our weaknesses and we magnify those, or we take our responsibilities, you just gave a great example, and we magnify that, we can also inflate negative projections and potential risk. It's also called catastrophizing.
Right.
Because we're literally making mountains out of molehills.
Well, I forgot where it was, but one of the books that when we talked to one of the authors and we were talking about something similar, and I think the example was you go to eat lunch, you spill spaghetti sauce on your shirt, you have a spot on your shirt,
Yeah.
so you come to the radio station and I go, oh, David, was the spaghetti good? And you go, yes, I'm such a slob and everything I do is such a mess and I can't ever, and you go on and on and on and on, and all it is a spot of spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a slob. You
No,
just,
it's just spaghetti.
yeah. It's just
I was
spaghetti.
enjoying Monjuni's.
And
Hey,
sometimes it's just spaghetti.
sometimes you just got to slurp up the sauce, So the underlying assumption here, especially when we make mountains out of molehills, we blow things out of proportion. The underlying assumption is, I'm not going to be able to handle this. I'm not going to be able to handle what is going to happen. And so that's driven by insecurity. It's driven by anxiety, and
It's driven by fear.
and it escalates all of it.
What's the acronym for fear? False.
Expectations appearing real.
See, I think it's driven by fear.
Yeah. Or face everything and respond.
How about face everything and run?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, another distortion is minimization. That's where we're downplaying the importance of our skills, our attributes, our positive thoughts and feelings and events, such as compliments. Well, you look nice today.
Why, thank
Carly. But instead of doing that,
Oh, this old thing, I got this at the thrift store, and it was 50 cents, and I've had it forever, and
Yeah.
I never really wear it, but I thought I'd wear it today.
but we might magnify somebody else's looks or skills while minimizing, ours. So if you're in a group sharing, you might think everybody's pitch, everybody's idea was a whole lot better than yours. So again, it's self-sabotaging. Quit comparing yourself. Do you remember that? You remember back? Oh gosh, came out maybe when I was in the 7th grade. Desiderata. Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
You don't remember
the
Go
poem
placidly.
that,
Go placidly amid the noise. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to try to
yeah.
find that. And we'll see if we can share that.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Isn't that a cool thing?
You have it up in the office.
I do have it in the office. Yeah, I get asked routinely for copies of it. Yeah. We'll be back.
Awkward pause.
What can I say?
And welcome back. Welcome back into 1017 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into this edition of Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, as we continue to talk about reality. It's not always what we think it is because cognitive distortions can get in our way. Personalization.
Everything's my fault. It's all about me.
Yeah. And that, again, shame is underlying this. We're taking responsibility for things that we don't have any possible way to control. We blame ourselves when anything bad happens, and we take the blame for things that happen to other people, even when it's attributable to their own actions, right? Because a minute ago when you had me slapping Reuben, it was his fault.
Right.
Yeah, he provoked it. He definitely provoked it.
If he wouldn't have yelled at you, you wouldn't have had to hit him.
Exactly. So we can end up feeling guilty or like a victim. So if you're plagued by guilt, it may be a symptom of toxic shame. So personalization. What did we talked about our friend Don Miguel Ruiz?
It's not about me.
Don't take things personally.
Yes.
One of the 4 agreements.
He also said our words have power.
Yes.
So, and that includes the words you speak to yourself.
Absolutely.
So if our words have power and it's not about us.
Yeah.
Those are, I love his 4 simple tenets.
They're so simple. They're
Yeah.
so simple and so easy to remember those agreements. And then the 5th agreement too, have an open mind, but also be skeptical about what you hear, but also keep your mind open.
So what's the next one? Black and white thinking?
Black and white thinking. Are you an absolutist? Do you do the absolutes? The all or nothing. You're the best, you're the worst, you're right, wrong, good, bad. Black and white thinking people, you hear them say a couple of words that most therapists go always and never.
What? Yeah. And those people, you're either on my team,
yeah,
or you're against me.
Yeah. So you're thinking in absolutes, and that's magnification. If one thing goes wrong, we feel defeated. Well, what the heck? Why bother? I can't do it
ate one
right.
cookie. I blew my diet. Might as well eat the whole box.
Yeah. Life is not a dichotomy. There's always extenuating circumstances. Situations are unique. So what applies in one instance may not be appropriate in another. An all or nothing attitude can cause you to overdo or miss out on opportunities to improve and to gradually meet your goals, attain your goals.
Well, so black and white thinking can go back to your negative self-talk. If I say things like, I always mess up.
Yeah.
I never get the answers right.
Yeah.
Those kind of absolutes. And when you're talking to your partner, your spouse, if you say if I say, David, you always do something.
Yeah.
What is the saying? It's almost always never true.
There you go. The next one we want to talk about is projecting the negative. So self-criticism and shame generate this one. Do you mind if we mentioned Desiderata? Can I read Desiderata?
Sure.
I found it.
It's really awesome.
It really is. It's attributed to, it's copyrighted 1952. The author is identified as Max Ehrmann. Or I don't know if Ehrmann. So I don't know if that's Ehrmann or Ehrmann. But it's Desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even the dull and ignorant, they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. Isn't that beautiful?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I've stopped and read it several times in the office. So for those of you guys who don't know, David has a picture, and this is my favorite picture. He has a lot of really nice art in his office, but he has a picture of laughing Jesus. And
yeah.
it's my favorite
Yeah.
picture because every time I see it, it makes me smile. So
That's but see, I was talking, it's funny you should mention that because I was talking with somebody today. How many times do we see depictions of Jesus, and we've got him, we've got him all sour faced and dour and looking down on us all judgmental and
Yeah.
but the picture you're talking about,
he's got his head back and
he's
he's
yeah,
laughing.
he's
He's belly
smiling.
laughing.
Yeah, that Jesus. God, who wouldn't come to that Jesus, right?
That's the Jesus I want to know.
Yeah.
That's and I love that the way that they talk about in the poem that it's God as you understand him.
Yeah.
And because I think that I think that's important for us not to put
I do too. We do a lot of judging in our churches.
and we judge ourselves a lot
Yeah, we
based
do.
on ideals and I guess maybe tapes put down, on our DOS, in our operating system
Yeah.
by others,
Yeah.
and we judge ourselves and we shame ourselves, in the name of religion a lot of times.
So, Desiderata, the poem that I just shared, is really about self-criticism. It's reminding us, hey, don't do that, because that's projecting the negative, and so we don't want to. We want to be very careful about self-criticism, shame. Those are going to generate anticipation of failing and of rejection. And perfectionists distort reality by assuming negative events or negative outcomes are more likely to occur than the positive ones. I figure it's at least 50-50, right?
It is 50-50, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
what else would it be?
In the words of Meg McCormick, my youngest daughter,
Ooh.
you do you because you is good.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to have to quote Meg on
I
that.
know.
Yeah. We're talking reality. It isn't always what you think because cognitive distortions can harm us. We'll be back. More strategies to come. Well, maybe we just heard an example of the final, cognitive distortion. We're not going to share it because we don't share the outtakes from strategies. Thank goodness. Sometimes
Thank goodness.
We're not allowed.
We're
by
not.
law.
No, we're not. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living. That's why you keep the finger on the. I noticed you moved the finger to the button.
That's right.
During our break.
I've had an itchy trigger finger the whole time ever since Carla came in.
I love
with a head of steam.
Welcome back.
I did come in with a head of steam.
Welcome back into Strategies for Living, folks, here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Talking about reality isn't always what you think because of these things called cognitive distortion. So the last one we want to get in this evening is overgeneralizing. Their opinions or statements that go beyond the truth they're broader than specific instances. We might form a belief based on some evidence or maybe one example. So, okay, Mary doesn't like me, and I overgeneralize that to nobody likes me. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw Carla in the grocery store and she didn't talk to me. She is so stuck up since she's been on the radio.
There you go.
And,
there you go.
And the reality is Carla didn't even see you.
You made it.
So she's not ignoring you.
When we generalize about a group of people or gender, it's usually false. Example, men are better at math than women.
All women are bad drivers.
Yeah, there you go. And it's just not true.
Blondes are dumb.
When we use words like all or none or always or never, we're probably making an overgeneralization based on black and white thinking.
Like all conservatives
Yeah.
do this thing or
Yeah.
all Republicans do that thing.
Or even worse about ourselves. I won't ever, or I can't. Henry Ford said if a person thinks he can or a person thinks he can't, he's right.
I'll never be anything in life.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll be stuck in this dead-end career for the rest of my life.
Yep, there you go. Well, this is good stuff. So I hope we have shown a light on cognitive distortions again this evening. This isn't the first time we've talked about it. It won't be the last.
So, and I'm going to tell you, think about what you're thinking about.
Yes.
I mean, pay attention to the thoughts that are coming into your mind.
Most definitely. Thank you, Carla girl.
Thanks.
You have survived. Do you feel better now?
I do feel better. I'm with my two favorite men in the world.
Oh, I love it. Ruben, does she feel better now?
She does. Yeah,
Okay.
it's noticeable.
Folks-
The steam has settled.
Folks, I hope you feel better now. We've been brought to you by Cato. We've been brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why? Why are you waiting? Make the call. For Carla McCormick, for Reuben Wright, I'm David McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.
Confidence. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. That from Cardinal Donald Wuerl, one of the highest profile Catholic cardinals in the country. He was faulted in a grand jury report released yesterday that found hundreds of priests sexually abused 1,000 children in Pennsylvania over a period of decades. And there was a systematic cover